Experience a membership that backs what you're building with American Express Business Platinum. Get 2 times membership rewards points per dollar on eligible purchases in key business categories, as well as on each eligible purchase of $5,000 or more, on up to $2 million in eligible purchases per calendar year. American Express Business Platinum. There's nothing like it. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum.
Welcome back to I Want That Too, the podcast where Disney merch meets Disney history. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and as always, I'm joined by the lovely Lauren Hersig.
Hi, Jim. How's it going?
It's going reasonably well, thanks largely to you and your husband. We had some technical issues here at Sadler Hill earlier today. You know, the Dixie cup and string I used to connect with the internet broke, but Lauren and Eric talked me off the ledge. So in theory, I'm fine until it doesn't work again, and then I'm going to throw myself off the roof.
Well, let's not do that because we've got a lot to get to on today's show, and we need you here intact.
Okay. Right.
So
I'll try.
Okay. On today's episode, we are taking a look at the Zootopia 2 merch collection out ahead of the film hitting theaters here pretty soon in November. The newest and oddest souvenir guide that we just got from Disneyland. Can't wait to talk about that. And then what I would think is a surprising collaboration between Disney and Formula One racing. And then, like Jim said, we're going to wrap it all up with a special guest who is author Todd James Pierce, whose new book, The Making of Mary Poppins and How It Transformed Disney, takes us inside the film that he says changed everything.
And it's a great book, by the way. Just want to say that right up front. But before we get to talking with Todd, we of course we got news, and before the news, we got we have to acknowledge our sponsor, who is of course UnlockedMagic.com, the same trusted team behind the DVC rental store and the DVC resale market. And if you're planning a Disney trip, they've got the best deals on Walt Disney World tickets, including the lowest prices for those after hours hard ticket parties like Mickey's Very Merry and Jollywood Nights. And speaking of which, did you see the photos online of like the giant crowds at the studio for the first night of Jollywood Nights, November 8th?
I mean, are you surprised though?
I guess I was, because I remember not all that long ago when this thing launched. Yeah. It's just sort of like, oh, I don't know if you want to go there, but here we are. But anyway, if you're interested in going to these parties, visit unlockmagic.com to get the best ticket deals and make your next Disney trip just a little more magical. So, now to the news.
Yeah, so this one I have had on my list for a couple weeks that I wanted to dig into, which is Zootopia 2 and the merch. So the Disney Store is gearing up for the release of Zootopia 2, which if you're living under a rock, it's coming to theaters November 26th. We're seeing the merch at the Disney Store as well as in the parks, in the world of Disney.
Yeah, this is a big one. I mean,
it's okay.
Yeah, and by the way, the initial box office projections for, again, as you mentioned, this debuts on November 26th. That's the start of the long Thanksgiving weekend. Numbers out today, Lauren. They're anticipating that Zootopia 2 over that long 5-day long Thanksgiving weekend, 125 million, and that's just domestic, not what we'll do overseas.
What do you think, Jim? What do you think is going to be the actual?
It's hard to say. I mean, it's worth noting when the original film came out in 2016, it came out in March, and it still managed to do $1 billion worldwide. So, it is heading into, the holiday season, which is normally when, family-related films do really, really well. But I think as you and Lainey would very, point out, Wicked for Good opens the week before this. And I'm sorry, but I think that a lot of family audience, especially given the business that the original Wicked Part 1 did last holiday season, I'm pretty sure I know where these people are going. And for weekend 2, it's entirely possible they'll also still be going to Wicked for good. But on the other hand, Disney believes Zootopia 2, huge hit, which is why they're doing all this merch. So let's talk about some of this merch.
Yes, but for the record, I just want to put it out there that I think that wicked witches eat bunnies for lunch. Just saying.
Wow, okay.
No, I'm kidding. It's all in good fun. I hope Zootopia crushes it. I'm sorry, Judy Hopps.
Okay, and if you listen very carefully there, folks, that's our invitation to the Disney Christmas party going into the trash. So, but go ahead, Lauren. Please tell us about the merch.
But this cute Judy Hopps loungefly, makes up for it totally. So, I think of this collection, that this to me is the centerpiece. So, Judy Hopps, she's gray, she's fluffy, she got tall bunny ears. What is not to love about this cute loungefly? There's also a Spirit jersey, blue, and not only are you getting Judy Hopps, who we love, you're getting Nick Wilde, you're getting the 2 new characters from the sequel, which is Gary Snake and Nibbles Maplestick.
By the way, while we're on the topic of Spirit jerseys, I don't know if your husband told you, but when he and I recorded the most recent Epic Universal podcast, I was actually wearing my Spirit jersey that you purchased for me at that backstage store, the cast member only thing.
Property
control. Yes, 'cause I was out in the driveway. I was nailing in our snow stakes because, in fact, tomorrow, supposedly, we may get the first snow of the season. So, and I didn't want to get shot while I was out banging in my snow stakes. So I was wearing my bright orange, Spirit jersey, and then I came in and recorded the show. And Eric, immediately when the camera came on, started laughing because I do, when I wear it, I look like a navel orange with feet. But anyway, but I also have to say that I actually like the color of this Zootopia, Spirit jersey. It's a very pleasing blue.
I actually really like it. And what else I like is this, it's the Snake, Gary D. Snake plushie. You should be seeing him. I would love to know why he's wearing a fanny pack. Do you know the story behind his fanny pack?
I do not. My copy of the art of Zootopia 2 won't show up till next week. And Drew, my partner, on the Fine Tuning podcast, absolutely refuses to share any information about Zootopia 2. And Drew has known who the villain is for like 3 months now. He actually got invited to the scoring session and sat there and watched them score a scene with the villain. And it's like, oh, okay, now I know.
Well, I don't think it's Gary or Nibbles.
Well, there was no mention of fanny packs. So there you go.
All right. But anyway, they do have a lot of plush as we're leading into the holidays. So you got your standard plush. You got mini bean bags. We even got some squishmallows, if you're familiar with those. And they're all available on Shop Disney.
But it's not just Shop Disney and the parks that has the Zootopia 2 stuff. Isn't McDonald's on board with this as well?
Yes. So we went yesterday to get our Zootopia toys, and it's Judy Hopps this week. Hunter, my oldest said something about Judy Hopps having a fish, but it didn't look like a fish. It just looked like she was maybe standing on a water. But she's very, very cute, and the quality I thought was good.
Okay. I didn't want to have to go to McDonald's to begin collecting these things, but I guess now I am. But again, this is because Disney knows what it's doing. This is a global push for this movie. Stuff in the parks, fast food, and as you mentioned earlier with the that Loungefly thing. I mean, collector grade pieces all coming in the marketplace at the same time.
All right, we're moving on. So if Disney didn't like my Wicked comment, they're not going to love this one. So this was on the Disney Parks blog, and I just had to share it because I thought it was odd. I'd like to get your take. So they posted this new souvenir guide, which I love, and it walks guests through ways to remember their visit. Also love. So think like the pins or your autographs or whatever. But the weird thing is, Jim, that they lean into freebies. So the name of the article is actually Disneyland Resort Souvenir Guide, freebies, merch, and more. They're leading with free. When was the last time you heard Disney lead with free ever?
Very teeny tiny, long ago in the distance. What's interesting about this, though, is that there are some pretty amazing collectibles that you can get for free. But, they come from the oddest places. Lauren, for example, I want to say this was 20 years ago. On Tom Sawyer's Island, no less. And I had a member of Disney security come up to me, and we got chatting, and evidently the gentleman enjoyed the conversation because, before I go, I got something to give you. And he reaches in and he has a sticker of, it's Mickey in a Disneyland security outfit, and it's here, we have these too. Everybody, every department has stickers. We have stickers, and it's been on my address book since then. Just sort of because it's so weird because it's Mickey, in his blue shirt and his tie and his white security hat, and it's hey you stop there. So
that's a good impression.
There we go. But all right, so talk to me about this merch guide, which again leans into free souvenirs.
Yeah, so this is my thought behind it. I'm wondering if they're trying to ease guests into all the price hikes we've been seeing, so between Lightning Lane and park tickets and premium merch. I just don't know that free is probably tested real well.
Well, but let's be honest here. It is, especially now, given what's going on in our economy. It's a smart bit of optics, and more important, reminding people that, just what I described with the security guy, that there are these little moments of magic that don't cost extra. And when they actually, in order for them to occur, you kind of have to have a moment with a cast member. So, but I think at the same time, you're right. It probably does, in a weird sort of way, soften the sticker shock that guests get without, of course, actually changing the pricing structure.
Yeah, and I mean, the article even says, it calls out the idea of building memories and not just buying things. I don't know if they're trying to, shift the narrative to expensive day out equals, meaningful experience. And don't get me wrong, listen, I absolutely love all of the free things at Disney, the I'm celebrating buttons, that is such a big part, or all of the stickers or the autographs that you can get. You could literally take a notebook from home and get autographs. So I'm not knocking the free magic that comes from a Disney vacation, and if you're lucky, even getting pixie dusted. I just thought that it was odd. I'd never really seen anything like that.
Now, speaking of which, let me tell you a story from this day. And by the way, this did not start a particularly happy time in my life. This is after my ex, Michelle, and I had separated, and she took our then 2-year-old daughter, Alice, home And home for Michelle then was Honolulu. All right.
I remember.
Yeah. And so I'm still in Orlando, and we're coming up on the first Christmas that we're separated. And I wanted to do something special for Alice. And what was interesting is just around the same time, this is when, again, this is a weird left in the story, but hang in there. They had just opened Alien Encounter. And again, in the fine Disney tradition, there was a post-show gift shop. And in the post-show gift shop was not, well, all right, they did have plush of the scary alien that tried to eat your face. But they also had Skippy. The cute little 6-armed alien that that you saw tested on in the pre-show, and Skippy was adorable. And I thought, I'm going to get that for Alice for her for Christmas. But then I thought, well, how do I make this special? And so, Lauren, this is back in the days of actual film and instamatic cameras and that sort of thing. But what I did is I spent the next 3 days walking around the Disney parks, and I did all of the character meet and greets I could find. But then I explained to them, I'm giving this to my daughter for Christmas. She's in Honolulu. Could you hold it and smile into the camera? And all of these Disney cast members were like, absolutely, that is a killer idea. And my favorite picture out of the whole of this, I had actually gone, they had a live stage show at that point over in Disney's Hollywood Studios for The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And my favorite characters out of that film were the gargoyles, and Victor, Hugo, and Laverne. And so the performance was over, and I talked with the stage manager, and a moment later, who comes out on stage but all three of them? And they were like, what do you need us to do? You just need us to hold this and smile into the camera? Absolutely. And, I took all of those pictures, I put them in a book, I wrote a story that explained that, here was Skippy looking for Alice. And, the very last person in the book said, oh, I know where she is. She's in Honolulu. And, well, let's, and that's why it came through the mail to her. And, Alice, I guess, still has it. Definitely Skippy. And actually, the last time I was visiting her, I saw the book, but, the pictures were starting to fall out. They were held in there with good Scotch tape. But that was free.
You're such a good dad.
No, that was just somebody heartbroken who was just trying to do something special. And so anyway, all right, so to move from mailing things to Honolulu to now something that's going to be staged in Las Vegas, and how Disney has a tie into this. What is this Formula One thing you're talking about?
I was going to take the angle of surprising, but maybe it's not. I don't know. Disney has these weird collabs lately, some of them. We were watching TV yesterday, and Eric was like, you have to ask Jim, why is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction on Disney Plus? And I'm like, I don't know. Jim would probably know, but do you know?
I'm still trying to figure out in fact, I contacted you the night it was on. When they did the full night, 2 hours on ABC, where on Dancing with the Stars, the people who were competing only danced to songs from Wicked. And it was just, I said, first of all, get Lainey in front of a television right now. But at the same time, it's the notion of you're giving Universal 2 hours of free advertising time for your movie, which, by the way, is going to be competing with Zootopia 2, as we mentioned earlier in today's show. And it was like, so let me do some research on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame thing there. But yeah, Disney, you're not wrong. Disney does weird collabs, especially lately.
So this one that is next up is Formula One Racing. And it is, this collection of merch is launching alongside the 2025 Las Vegas Grand Prix.
Okay. And it's not small, right? I mean, they got jackets and hoodies and hats and pins and even a sticker pack. And all of it themed around the race and Mickey Mouse. Now, I think you were mentioning that the windbreaker is the real standout, right?
Yeah, it's sold out, Jim.
Woof.
It's $250 for a windbreaker.
Okay.
Like crazy. And this is like the, I don't know. I don't know if there's like a giant audience for F1 racing. So if you're an F1 fan, let us know. But like, it's your typical like red, black, white. Mm-hmm. It looks like they're like trying to stay on brand with Formula One and racing, but it just has that like Mickey vibe. So if you want to check it out, it's on Shop Disney, and I guess, or in person, there's also going to be an F1 hub inside the Venetian in Las Vegas.
Okay, and just so you know, folks, the 2025 Las Vegas Grand Prix is going to take place November 20th through the 22nd, and the race runs right through the heart of the Strip with practice sessions, qualifying rounds, and the main event all happening over 3 nights. It, so they tell us, is one of the most elaborate race setups in the world. A temporary street circuit lined with, neon and luxury hotels. Though, just for a sec, Lauren, what might be an interesting parallel here is you mentioned, so much of the stuff is sold out. Isn't that what happens every year with the Walt Disney World Marathon as well? That, in fact, we constantly hear complaints from listeners about how, they were literally taking part in the event, and all they wanted was the T-shirt to take home. So, they could very subtly go into the office and go, oh, yeah, I did the Goofy Half Marathon. But maybe that's the same thing. I mean, it's just the whole notion of if people are going to Vegas to see, this amazing Grand Prix event, they want something to take home. So that's...
But what's it have to do with Disney?
Well, Disney likes to be where the people are. And in fact, maybe this is the plain answer for your Rock and Roll Hall of Fame thing. The notion that, people who are rock and roll fans go to the Disney parks. Oh, hell, they get on board, Rock and Roller Coaster.
Yeah. Oh, and I do have to say, I guess I should have said this at the top of the segment and not the bottom. But if you're not familiar with F1, it's like the global version of NASCAR. It's got, I think, smaller cars. So the cars, you're 200 miles per hour. I am not a huge, F1 fan, but my best friend's family, they're diehard. So that's the extent of it. If you're an F1 fan, let us know. But you're right, Jim. Disney just wants to be where the people are. And that is okay. That is okay with us. We're for it.
Yeah, all true. So on that level, the partnership makes sense. I mean, F1 is suddenly cool with younger audiences, and I think that film this past summer, that could be a contributing factor. And again, Disney wants to be right in this cultural lane. Worldwide event, built-in fashion audience, and a brand that already knows how to make limited merch feel special.
True facts. And speaking of special, we've got a guest this week who knows a thing or two about what makes Disney magic timeless, right?
That he does. And in a moment, we'll be talking with Todd James Pierce about his wonderful new book, the Making Mary Poppins, the Sherman Brothers, Walt Disney, and the creation of that classic film. But before we do that, there's this.
Hello, I'm Chris Cox, and I've teamed up with Len Tester to argue before our judge, Jim Hill, as he presides over us on our new podcast, The Case For with Chris Cox. In every episode, Len and I will argue about the big Disney debates like park hopping, early entry, and whether churros count as a food group. Whether you're planning a trip or just love Disney debates, it's the perfect podcast for you. Search The Case For with Chris Cox wherever you get your podcast.
This episode is brought to you by Marqeta. When it comes to your payments provider, you can't afford to compromise. Marqeta's modern payment solutions flex with your business without the trade-offs. Stable and agile, secure and innovative, scalable and configurable. If they say you can't have it all, don't believe them. Your business demands more. Choose a payments provider that delivers more. Choose Marqeta. Visit Marqeta.com/Spotify to learn more.
Hey, Fidelity. What's it cost to invest with the Fidelity app?
Start with as little as $1 with no account fees or trade commissions on U.S. stocks and ETFs.
That's music to my ears.
I can only talk.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Zero account fees apply to retail brokerage accounts only. Sell order assessment fee not included. A limited number of ETFs are subject to a transaction-based service fee of $100. See full list at fidelity.com/commissions. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
So we have a special guest. 3 specials. That's like extra special. Who is a fellow Disney historian to Jim Hill, right? I think you guys both got in the business.
No, he's a grown-up. All right, he's an actual professor.
Oh.
He has written, well, you'll describe in a moment, his 2 books, and we're here to celebrate his new book. No, I'm the one who sits at the table, with the folding chair. All right, he's got the upholstery. But anyway, continue on.
So we've admired Todd James Pierce for quite some time, who has spent his career digging into the stories behind Disney films, parks, and the people who built them. My personal favorite, Todd, is what you did with Osborne Lights. I literally feel like I was there. It's my favorite. But he is the author of 3 Years in Wonderland and the Life and Times of Ward Kimball, and he hosts the Disney History Institute podcast, one of the best deep dives in the company's creative past. He's also a professor, like Jim said, at Cal Poly, where he teaches storytelling and writing. In his new book, The Making of Mary Poppins and How It Transformed Disney, explores how that single film reshaped the studio's future. Welcome, Todd.
Thank you so much for having me on, both of you. And Jim, I have to tell you that back in the 1990s and early 2000s, when we were all kind of getting into this, there was a group of people in graduate school that used to figure out your URL for the next blog article a little bit early so everyone could read it like at 9 o'clock at night when you posted it, as opposed to the next morning. So,
I'm both honored, flattered, and just a teeny bit frightened.
Somebody showed me that. I did not figure it out for myself. Someone showed me that.
Well, there we go. All right. So just to get into it here, I mean, again, and I want to stress here, folks, wonderful book. Absolutely amazing book here. I mean, I've studied this film forever myself, and there's stuff in this stories in this that I've never heard before. In fact, just before we get started here, you have that lovely vignette about when Julie Andrews has gotten the job and they put her up in the house in Toluca Lake, and she and her husband Tony Walton have moved in, and they have their brand new daughter Emma
K,
and they're worried that the toddler Lauren is going to trash the house, so which is filled with wonderful a studio level executive. It's just like this child's going to destroy this stuff, and so what she reaches out to, is it
it's Emile, I believe, that
Emile Curie.
That she reaches out to, and she's worried that that their daughter is going to damage, scratch, bite. I don't know what the damage is going to be, but they move all of the nice furniture out, and they go through the warehouse, and they pull in a lot of furniture from recent Disney suburban films, most of which star Hayley Mills. And so her house becomes kind of a museum to recent set decorations and dressings from Hayley Mills films.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Todd, again, is the king of the weird details. So, for example, the couch is from The Parent Trap. And there's, what is it? There was the chair from In Search of the Cat. castaways, and I just love that. But all right, anyway, folks, we should start the interview proper. So let's start with the obvious. I mean, when did you yourself get to see Mary Poppins first?
I saw it first in 1980, and I was older at that point. I was a very young teenager at that point. And I've often kind of wondered, like, why didn't I see it in one of the re-releases? And I'm pretty sure for the 73 re-release, I had chicken pox that ruled me out of that. But I didn't see it. And it was like one of the last big Disney films that I ever saw. And so I saw it when we were on vacation in San Diego at some movie duplex and was really kind of stunned with how well the movie was put together and how much of an emotional punch it has at the end and how much smarter and more cohesive the whole project was compared to other films that had come out of the early 60s from Disney, live action films that came out during this period.
And by the way, weird little side story here about the 1980 release of Mary Poppins. That literally happened at the last minute because they had made Watcher in the Woods and they tested it and nobody understood the ending. So it was one of these things where it's like, oh crap, we got to do reshoots, and what do we got in the vault? We haven't put it out in a while. Mary Poppins, absolutely into theaters now.
And so we should probably explain, like, Jim and I are closest in age, but we should probably explain for some younger viewers, Mary Poppins was not on TV. There was no home video. This wouldn't show up on home video until mid-'80s. I want to say 85. I could be a little off there. So there is VHS and Betamax back then, and the CED Laserdisc, the early version of Laserdiscs. But Disney is really late to enter that market compared to other studios. And so if you wanted to see something when I was growing up, it was mostly the theaters unless it was coming onto the Sunday night weekly TV show.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but like, was this like why Mary Poppins? Did this end up being like a favorite film, an obsession?
Well, so mostly I look at my projects as ways to tell stories about Disney properties or Disney productions in such a way that they cast a larger light on what's going on in the company or in film or in the world at the time. And so for me, this was a really good project in that there was a very clear, identifiable, dramatic line that I could follow, that there was an escalation of tension, that there are some high-stakes goals. And this is a transformative project for literally everyone who is on the film, including for Walt Disney. In April of 1964, when for the previews for the World's Fair in New York, he goes out there with a person named Bob Foster, who's a Disneyland lawyer. And Bob Foster's only going to New York to disguise his travel trail. His real destination is Florida. And from there, he goes down to start buying land for Disney World. And his specific directions are to buy 5,000 acres of land, up to 10,000, depending on how the parcels worked out. Walt was very interested in getting a body of water at that time, which was going to be difficult because all the land had to surround the lake. Otherwise, it would be a publicly accessible lake. So there's a little bit of give for more land, but that's all there was going to be. And for Walt, it transforms Walt's life in many ways. But one of the biggest is that it gives him money after the film comes out to spend on other projects. And so Disney World goes from 5,000 acres to 27,000 acres. And that is largely due to the financial success of Mary Poppins in 1964 and 65.
See, Lauren, this is why you want to read Todd James Pierce's books. In fact, I wanted to just slide backwards here for a sec. This is also what I loved about 3 Years in Wonderland, because face it, you and I have been waiting our lifetime for somebody to do the C.V. Wood book, and you finally got tired and actually did it. and to just the way CV's journey through the Disney company is the through line of the book, and it's wonderful. You learn so much from that. So, but anyway, we're here to talk about making Mary Poppins. So let's get into the nuts and bolts. I mean,
sure.
When did you get started writing this?
For me, it's not so much the sitting down and writing it that takes that much time. Mm-hmm. It's the research and finding things where all the time is spent, and that part was really years. And so for like the longer projects that I do, either for the podcast or for books, I kind of build a very dense outline. Over years. And a lot of the finding stuff is really when I'm looking for other stuff. I was at Boston University recently going through their archive holdings, and I didn't find anything that I was looking for, but I found some really interesting stuff that I wasn't looking for. And so there's outlines on my computer that are when they get up to a point where I can write about them, are usually over 100 pages long, single-spaced. And it's just all the quotes that I want to use in the project that I'm working on. So that's where the real time is. And so writing this out, I wrote about 4,000 to 5,000 words a week for like the first real functioning draft. And I want to say that took me 4 months, and it was more Sherman-centric in its original version. And then my agent said, we would be able to sell this if it was more about Mary Poppins. And then that actually took more time than the full draft did. But that's much more my process. A lot more of the work is finding the material and then organizing it and then figuring out really what the narrative arc is going to be for it. Because, at least for me, books are not terribly interesting if they're a presentation of anecdotes and facts, if there is not some sort of story that pulls us all along through it. And so that's where the kind of thinking and research time goes.
Got it. And want to stress here, folks, that poor Todd had one arm tied behind his back here. Because let's face it, if you look at the people who were the key creatives of Mary Poppins. I mean, we lost producer Bill Walsh in 1975. We lost director Robert Stevenson in 1986. Don DeGrady, the writer, so to speak, on Mary Poppins. We lose him in 1991. And, of course, Richard Sherman's good right arm and brother, Robert, in 2012. So, to circle back to what you were saying, there's what I love about this book is you often put the reader in the room with these individuals. And so how did you chase down the stories for Walsh and Stevenson and DeGrady?
Well, so in kind of doing what I do, or in some ways similar to some of the things that you do too, I've developed a really large database on my computer that I've pieced together now over decades. And it's really working through a lot of the material that I've collected up there and systematically organizing it. Like, there's a lot of things that really kind of pop out once you have a timeline and everything's put in order. It's like, oh, this influences that, which creates that. So once you have a confluence of all the things from the paper trail, anything from letters, anything from newspaper reports at the time, and then an awful lot of interviews. I had been lucky enough to talk to both Bob and Dick before they passed, so that was helpful as well. But most everyone else who had been a key on the project was gone by the time I was working on this.
Well, you never know it from reading the book. I mean, again, that's what I love about it. So more often than not, you're in the room. All right, so Todd, I'm sorry, I have to ask about Saving Mr. Banks. Disney film came out in 2013. Look, me personally, I loved what John Lee Hancock did. But at the same time, it's a largely fictionalized take on how the movie of Mary Poppins was made. So having that out there, did that make things easier or harder for you to get a book about this film going?
oh, the book part. This did come up a number of times when trying to sell the book. In terms of making the book, though, I didn't look at the movie while I was writing the book. I had seen the film and enjoyed the movie quite a bit when it came out a dozen-ish years ago. But also in this, I think of Saving Mr. Banks as a representation of the tension, the figures, and the emotion that went into the construction of that movie. Movies have like very kind of firm narrative traditions. You need to have continually rising tension unless you have an art house film, and that was not the goal here at all. And so there were clearly some choices to lately fictionalize a number of things that have happened in the movie to represent the emotional tone, I want to say, even if they didn't represent historical events. But in talking about the book now, Saving Mr. Banks is a really great touchstone for groups or bookstores, because, I get to say, it's like, okay, you saw this movie and you remember when Walt Disney, played by Tom Hanks, took Pamela Travers to Disneyland? And then I get to say, that never happened.
What?
And now we can talk about what happened.
So can you tell us, were there, not to spoil the book for folks, because Jim's read it, I've not, but, were there many of those things that, people would be surprised?
Well, let me tell you what happened, and then you can kind of see how they fictionalized it. So Walt is never very good about talking about his own motivation in abstract language. It's just not a strength area for him. And so, but I think he reads people very well. And he's a strong-willed individual that likes people to agree with him. And Pamela Travers is another of the same, though I think Pamela's maybe a little more eccentric at times. And I think he has the good sense to realize that if he's in the room with Pamela a lot, they're just going to come to blows and the project's going to blow up. And so he needs to remove himself from this in real life, not in Saving Mr. Banks, to save the project. And so what he does is he gives a letter 2 days before Easter to the head of story department, a guy named Bill Dover, who's going to kind of stand in for Walt. And the letter says to Pamela that he would like Bill to take Pamela to Disneyland for lunch. And that little detail is important, for lunch on Easter. And if you know anything about Pamela Travers, I think it's really easy to imagine that theme parks are not going to be her thing at all. And so there's a really smart bit of manipulation here that I think the people that made Saving Mr. Banks just didn't understand. What I think Walt is trying to do there is he's trying to get Pamela over to the park around noon. He understands they might be late, maybe by 1, because back in the 1960s, on Easter weekend, they did two things. On Saturday, the day they're not going there, that was the day that they usually had the kids' dog show. So they had community events on Easter weekend. They haven't done this in decades. And then on Sunday, they would have the Easter parade. And this included people from the community, not paid cast members, in period clothes and gowns with parasol umbrellas. Boys would have turn-of-the-century bikes with the really big front wheel, or tandem bikes. Young girls would have these carriages, their prams for their dolls. And then there would be an awful lot of antique automobiles that would participate in the parade. And so what Walt's trying to do, there had been discussions before this where Pamela suggests that, you're kind of a fantasy animation company. I think what Walt's trying to do is to very subtly show her, is like, look, here you are in turn of the century America, not England, but turn of the century. And here's the cars and here's the people in their costumes. As a company, we're capable of doing much more than what you're familiar with. And that's the little bit of manipulation that's going on there and taking her to Disneyland. But Walt never goes. It's head of story that takes her there.
Yes, see, this is why you want to get this book. And by the way, folks, that's a plug. And we have to also do a plug for our sponsor here. But when we get back, more great stories from Todd James Pierce. But first, this.
Join me, Jacqueline Coley, as I sit down with Mark Platt, producer of Wicked and Wicked for Good, as he reveals how his family and collaborations have shaped his storytelling. Plus, how Wicked for Good delivers the satisfying finale fans have been waiting for. Listen now to Seen on the Screen wherever you get your podcasts.
This episode is brought to you by Petivity. In every pet story, there's a moment where seemingly minor changes could be the first signs of larger issues. Petivity is here to help you better understand what's going on with your pets with smart devices and at-home health tests that proactively monitor their health. Give your pet the story they deserve with Petivity. Visit Petivity.com all December long for a site-wide sale on all smart devices and at-home health tests.
Grabbing the holidays by the boughs with Duluth. Step 1. Hire a mall Santa to handle snow removal.
Ho, ho, ho! My sciatica!
Step 2. Hit Duluth Trading and load up on fire hose pants, buck naked underwear, pocket pack bibs, free swinging flannel, and all kinds of ingenious gear you won't find anywhere else. Grab the holidays by the boughs and shop Duluth Trading. Online and in-store.
Okay, so we're back, and we're back with Todd James Pierce, again, the author of Making Mary Poppins, terrific new book about this film that transformed the Disney company. And to get back to why I so enjoy your latest book, Todd, is, for example, you find a way to shine a spotlight on folks that you wouldn't normally enter this narrative. Like, take, for example, how Julie Andrews actually got cast and the role that Walt's longtime secretary, Tommy Wilk, had in this. In fact, wasn't she the one who suggested the strategy as to how to get Julie Andrews in front of Walt?
Yeah. So in Walt's suite area, Tommy Wilk and Hazel George are the big manipulators of Walt over and over again. And so in the early 60s, Walt and the Sherman brothers are thinking that Mary Martin is going to play Mary Poppins. And she's a much more serious musical actress than Julie Andrews. Like, Julie Andrews has a bit of sass to her. Julie Andrews is also 20 years younger than Mary Martin.
Yeah, Mary Martin at this point. In fact, isn't this same window of time that Mary Martin's on Broadway in The Sound of Music? So
yes, she's on the set. Yes.
Okay. And so, and again, Lauren, that's ironic in and of itself. For other reasons, but Mary Martin was also, to be polite here, more matronly, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that she projects a greater sense of sincerity and almost an operatic voice when she performs. She doesn't have the play and the sense of whimsy that Julie Andrews has in her best moments. And so she declines the role. She says that she doesn't want to do it. She is almost 50 years old at this point. And part of the issue now is that Pamela Travers wants someone who's younger to play Mary Poppins than Mary Martin, and she also wants someone who's British. And so they don't really have a good path to go down. There had been some crazy ideas that were considered before this, including Bette Davis, and so they're watching TV, they're watching movies. This is how they find a lot of the actors for Mary Poppins. And she shows up one night on the Ed Sullivan Show where she's singing a song from Camelot. It also has a whistling piece in the song that she sings. And both Bob and Dick see this being performed in the evening. And again, for people that are younger than me and Jim, back then there was like 3 TV channels. And so there was a really good chance that people were watching the same thing, unlike now when there's like 3,000 channels. And so there was a number of people at the studio that had seen this performance on the Ed Sullivan Show. And so there's a conversation between Don DeGrady and the Shermans about, we gotta tell Walt about this. And it's Tommy Wilk that says, like, oh no, this is a bad plan. You want Walt to discover this for himself, because she knows that Walt, if he feels it's his idea, he's gonna feel a little more wedded to it. And so there's risk in this because they arrange for Walt on his next New York trip to get tickets to go see Camelot. And I think it's the Majestic Theater in New York.
There we go.
And they get him those tickets. And Walt in the past has actually given tickets away to Broadway shows when he's in New York because he's tired. And so they're hoping Dick goes in and says, hey, this play is going to be really great, that he's going to go see this play and he's going to figure out the same thing they did, that Julie Andrews would be fabulous in this role. And that's how Walt becomes interested in it.
Did Pamela Travers weigh in? Did she fit the mold? I'm just curious.
Oh, no. Tell the story about the hospital, please.
So, one of the things to kind of understand about Pamela is I think she spends an awful lot of time by herself. She's getting older. The books are her main source of income, and by the 1960s, sales are declining because they belong a little bit to an earlier era. And the Disney people have a sense about this, that Pamela is going to make a lot of money from this film when it's released. But without this film, it's going to be financially difficult going for her. And so they're pretty sure it's going to work out, not because she's going to love the script treatment they have, but because she needs it financially to move forward. But also she really wants to control so many things about the project, even after it's going. So she calls up Julie Andrews shortly after she's given birth. And even after Julie says, I've just given birth, Pamela just kind of pushes on with the conversation and starts talking about how her looks either do or do not align with her image of how Mary Poppins would be played on the screen.
Oh my gosh.
So there's a really strong will there.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But again, what's so wonderful about making Mary Poppins is, again, you learn so much about what was going on during pre-production. In fact, if you ask anyone, about this film, what their favorite moment in is, a lot of people will immediately zero in on the Jolly Holiday sequence. But what's kind of interesting in your research on this book, Todd, you discovered there was an earlier take on the look of the jumping into the pastel painting. Did they actually experiment, or what happened here?
Floyd Norman recalls that there was a test done, so I assume that there was some backgrounds probably painted, probably some pencil tests done, something along that line. But there was some test work done on this to see if they could make. So Walt, when he's really interested in a project, one of the things that he tends to go to is he wants to visually distinguish its presentation from other Disney films and other Disney animation. And so for this film, the initial idea was going to be that the day out sequence, the supercalifragilistic Jolly Holiday animated sequence, was going to be rendered in the style of a pastel chalk drawing, but in animation. And so they tried this idea out and realized that it's not going to be very readable on screen, that it's going to be easier to go with things that have firm lines that are closer to what might be called in the 60s a Disney house style. And so that's what they go with. But originally there's a much more creative concept that's explored and then put aside.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, all right. So it makes it, Pamela approves. It makes it through the production process. We now arrive. It's August 1964, and we have our world premiere at Grauman's Chinese. And it's really, it's not a lie to say that the Disney company transforms on the back of what happens with this film. Well, first of all, this tidal wave of money comes pouring into the company. And can you talk a little bit about what the company then did with this dough?
Well, we get another 22,000 acres for Florida, which the original plans are going to be for what they're kind of calling Disneyland East. It has a number of nicknames at the time. It's going to be a lake area a few hotels, couple hotels, and a park, and a big buffer. And so the money allows Disney World to become Disney World. Without Mary Poppins, Disney World would just be a really big version of Disneyland. You get Mapo out of it, so a lot of the manufacturing gets expanded over at WED, and they get their own facilities. Also for Walt, there's a real point of pride here. He had felt that other studios had looked down on Disney as an unusual studio that does animation and movies for kids that are never that financially successful, the live action ones anyways. And this is the first time that other big studios take note of what's going on at Disney, and Disney starts the trend. And other studios start to imitate what Disney's doing. There's Dr. Dolittle, there's Oliver, there's a number of projects that are the descendants of Mary Poppins at other studios. And Walt, I think that's a point of pride for him. He finally did something that all the other big players are now taking notice and mimicking.
All true. All true. Okay, as we sort of close out things here, Leonard Maltin had, often described Mary Poppins as the almost perfect family film. But that said, Leonard has mentioned that if Mary Poppins does have a flaw, it's its length. It's 2 hours and 19 minutes long. And I have to ask, as somebody who's now studied, this film and how it came into being and that sort of thing, if you were judiciously going to use the scissors on this, where would you go? What would you do?
Well, I wouldn't cut anything out of the movie. I think it's perfect as is. But Walt was aware that there was narrative duplication in the movie, and it's the Uncle Albert visit. And so the chalk drawing sequence, the day out sequence, lets the kids know that all adults are not like the distant, removed, rather stern parents and police officer figure that we see early in the movie. So we get to see kind of character development with that. And the Uncle Albert section is, I think, wonderful. But in terms of narrative development, it just duplicates the same narrative point. And so when Walt was looking at it and thinking that we need to kind of truncate this so we can have more showings per day at each theater, that's the scene he thinks about taking out. But Edwin is just so charming in that sequence. They leave it in.
Oh, no, he is. And more to the point, if you're actually paying attention in that scene, they never repeat the same trick twice. I mean, that's the thing. It's a visual effects tour de force, because it's just sort of, in order to sell the idea that they are, in fact, floating up to the top of the room and then bobbing up, up and down in front of that, there were all sorts of practical effects done. And so, final question, Todd. Now, and again, I'm Disney nerding on you here for a moment. Okay, because the movie musical that comes before Mary Poppins, 1961's Babes in Toyland, which, by the way, just looked at the trailer the other day, and they hype it as Walt Disney's first ever live action musical. And let's be honest here, it's a mess, all right? And then, if we pivot to the movie musical that came after Mary Poppins, 1967's Happiest Millionaire, that's just plain hard to watch. It's just it's one of those. You literally are working. Back in the day when we wore watches, you'd look at your watch like, how long has this been going on? So, what is your theory as to why Disney Studios, absolutely hits the bullseye with Mary Poppins, whereas with Babes in Toyland and Happiest Millionaire, they somehow missed the mark?
Okay, a couple of thoughts.
Okay.
Babes in Toyland, I think, is actually really useful for the development of Mary Poppins, because the Sherman brothers, who had spent a lot of time in New York and understood stage musicals, get to see how this film's being developed on a Disney stage. And it's so Disney, as you know, is a company that promotes from within and wants to work with familiar people. So they're making Babes in Toyland mostly with TV people. And so not only like the Mouseketeers that show up on the film, but they use going from memory here, so you can correct me at any point. I think Tommy Mahoney is the choreographer for Babes in Toyland, who is the choreographer for the Mickey Mouse Club. I think George Bruns is doing orchestration. And most of his work at this time was in TV. And the Sherman brothers can see this and realize it's like, oh no, we need to get Walt off of these people and bring in some outside people. And from there, they get Mark Brough and Dee Dee Wood to come in and do choreography. And they have real stage ability to make Mary Poppins look like a Broadway musical. And they get Irwin Costal, who had done West Side Story, to do the orchestration. And so this makes a tremendous difference in terms of Mary Poppins. And so Babes in Toyland is a really good learning experience for the Shermans to go through. But I think like the real reason here is that most Disney projects, live action projects in the 50s and 60s were on a year cycle. They'd be started mostly in the summer and they'd be shot the next summer, in large part because they needed to do a lot of the shooting when kids weren't in school.
Oh, okay.
And so there's this really tight timeline for a lot of production. There's only like a few live action films that Walt works on that are outside of this structure. Mary Poppins is one. Walt will just give it as much money and as much time as it needs to. Darby O'Gill is another one that started in the mid-1940s. And that's developed over many, many years as well. And I think that's a superior picture as well. But Mary Poppins, I think he senses something in this picture, particularly as the Shermans start to develop the story for it. They invent the main story. The anecdotes and set pieces come from the books, but the main story is something that's made for the movie. Once that really starts to gel, I think he has a sense that this really has the possibility of being something tremendous.
And he had to work for it, right? With P.L. Travers.
Also true. Yep. This one he earned. Now, what about Happiest Millionaire? I mean, you would think, all of the lessons of Mary Poppins, though, I've also always heard that the project was originally written for Rex Harrison. And when, Rex said no, you turn to that great musical star, Fred McMurray. And, I just from there, I think you mentioned that Walt likes to work with people he's familiar with, people who he's loyal with. And I don't know if that was a good idea.
Yeah. I just don't. I still like Happiest Millionaire. I love the Portuosity sequence in it. But this was a project that simply didn't have the same amount of incubation time to go through many incarnations until they arrive at a script and a story that's shot. So there's just not the same amount of cooking time for that movie as there was for Mary Poppins. And maybe that's the difference.
There we go.
All right, Todd. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. Can you tell people how they can get their hands on The Making of Mary Poppins and how it transformed Disney?
Sure, you can find it on Amazon or really it should be in almost any bookstore, any chain or independent bookstore. And so you can find it in those usual places.
All right. Well, then so they get the book. How can people keep up with you?
So just my personal website is just toddjamespierce.com. And really anything I'm working on is posted up over there.
And the podcast, you want to give that a plug?
Oh, sure. Disney History Institute. We take on one big topic a year. And this last Sunday, I just posted, which sounds ridiculous now, part 21 in a biography of Mary Blair.
Yes, Eric, my husband, is a Disney nerd, and he was telling me all about it today. So make sure you check that out. But on that note, I do think it's time that we close up shop for today.
All right. And what Miss Hersey says is true. So if you want to keep up with everything happening across the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network, please follow us on social, and don't forget to check our Patreon for bonus shows and early access.
Yes, and if you have a question or an idea for a future episode, we love to hear from you. Jim is at jimhillmedia.com. I'm at laurenhersey.com.
And if you like the show, leave us a quick rating or review over on iTunes. It helps other Disney fans find I Want That Too.
Yes, it does. And that does it for today's episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on I Want That Too.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here. Wishing you a very happy half-off holiday because right now Mint Mobile is offering you the gift of 50% off unlimited. To be clear, that's half price, not half the service. And Mint is still premium unlimited wireless for a great price. So that means a half day, yeah? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.